Your kids could get free or low-cost health coverage from Medicaid or CHIP. Even if you've applied before, they may be eligible now. Kids up to age 19 are covered for checkups, vaccines, dentist visits, hospital care, and more. And if they already have Medicaid or CHIP, remember to renew every year. Visit insurekidsnow.gov or call 877-KIDS-NOW. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
So commonplace that the idea of ninjas are with headbands is good enough for us. Thank you, Naruto.
Believe it.
They're all ninjas there. Even my favorite part is when they're taking the tuning exam, because there's a guy in the background. I wish they had more. It's just in the background, but he looks like an accountant. Like he has to still go through this exam, and he has to get a degree in accounting.
I mean, if you live in a village of ninja, you're not going to trust a non-ninja accountant to handle your ninja books. Like, that just doesn't track.
Yeah, it's classic tax preparation no jutsu.
Ha!
Just a reminder, this is a spoiler-heavy podcast. Different series that require a spoiler warning will be in the description.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Gaming Theater Podcast. Today's episode is going to be the rise of the ninja craze, because we all know about ninjas and how cool they are, but there's a weird historical background of when they started being, hey, just ninjas in Japan to a worldwide cultural phenomenon, and we'll get to explore that. Now, to explore some of those incidences, I have a bunch of guests with me that will help me explain all of this. And over to my right is going to be...
Hi, my name is DandDaine. I'm a Twitch streamer, an award-winning dungeon master, and a student of history, Eastern history specifically. So, very excited to be talking about ninjas and pop culture.
All right, that's going to be a fun time for that. And over to their right is...
Hi there, my name's Ben. I go by L Penguin on Gaming Theater Presents. I'm a real-life gym leader that's building others through fandoms and fitness.
Oh, yeah, that's going to be a fun time too. Over to their right is going to be...
Hi, I'm WG Ashwood of Ashwood Audio. I'm a Twitch streamer and your fancy-focused charity host. And I'm excited to talk about ninjas.
Yes, we are all excited, and we're going to get to that soon. And over to their right is going to be...
Hi, I'm Ernest De Leon. I am co-host of Final Fantasy Files podcast, the host of the Simple Finance Bytes podcast, as well as the Fabula Obscura podcast. So a whole bunch of podcasts.
Oh, yeah. Between all of us, we've got podcasts for your days.
Happy to have you back, Ernest.
Great to be back. Yes.
With that being said, let's take a quick trip over to the Magical Birch Booth.
Hiya.
Woo!
Here we are at the Magical Birch Booth. Now, just to let everybody know, several of us are going to be over at PRGE. That's the Portland Retro Gaming Expo, which I believe is in October?
Correct.
It's in October
18th.
October.
I was going to say somewhere around the 18th, 20th, somewhere in there, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's the 17th to the 19th, if I'm being...
Yeah.
For real.
Well, we'll be there for it. Both us and the Final Fantasy podcast will also be there. So if you are in the area for and at that convention, come check us out. Stop by our booths and take a look at us. Feel free to chat with us. We love any of the feedback, or just to get this in here from some of our fans in person for that.
Absolutely. This year we're actually doing a 3-day booth. So we will be over on the other side, and we'll have 3 days of, and by the way, we're bringing a laser light show for our booth, as well as a Beats pill that's going to be playing nothing but 80s hair metal the entire time. So if you like 80s hair metal, that's our booth.
Well, I do got to say, you all do shake me all night long. So
there you go.
I'm so looking forward to
that. Great song.
Such a great song. I was going to go with we can rock and roll all night and party every day, but that's a 70s track.
You know what? It's funny. A lot of that blurred from like the 70s into the 80s. Yeah, it wasn't until like the 90s when they did the handoff to grunge that it really changed. So, yeah.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm. But, yeah. So, come check us out over at the PRGE. We'll be glad to see you there. And with that being said, let's get back to the show. So here we are on today's episode, and we're talking about the rise of the ninja craze. So if you are a fan of history and pop culture, there's always been sort of this sense of ninjas make things cooler. That's just sort of a fact. Like, oh no, my story needs to be somewhat cooler. Add a ninja to it. In fact, that's actually a joke in most things. Just add more ninjas. You'll get the job done.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a bit of a history to how they go from these mysterious shadow warriors to so commonplace that the idea of ninjas are with headbands is good enough for us. Thank you, Naruto.
Believe it.
They're all ninjas there. Even my favorite part is when they're taking the tuning exam, because there's a guy in the background. I wish they had more. It's just in the background, but he looks like an accountant. Like he has to still go through this exam, and he has to get a degree in accounting.
I mean, if you live in a village of ninja, you're not going to trust a non-ninja accountant to handle your ninja books. Like, that just doesn't track.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's classic tax preparation no jutsu.
Ha!
Yeah.
Touché, sir.
Touché, sir. That
Sure is. Just like a ninja, it makes off with stuff without people noticing.
Hey!
Hey.
Cooking the books.
Just make sure to have a set of ninjas to watch those other set of ninjas that are also your accountants.
Mm-hmm. Never trust a ninja.
But then, ironically, do trust a ninja if you have some historical preference for it. So, let's actually get started with the historical preference on this. Near as I can find from my research on this one, ninjas sort of pop up, as we know colloquially, about sometime during the Edo period. But they can go back even further. If I'm reading some of these stories right, the Sengoku period of Japan. So for those who don't know, the Sengoku period is roughly between 1493 to 1653 CE. So I believe the Sengoku, that's part of the Sengoku Jidai. That's the reformation of Japan, right?
Yeah, that's the Warring States period where, warlords, daimyo, we're all fighting for supremacy to see who's going to become the next guy on top, right? The next shogun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you have the shogunate and then you have the emperor, and there's two separate things for that.
They are.
But he who has the shogunate has the power of Japan.
By and large, yeah, the Bakufu, which is sort of their military government, depending on when we're talking, right? This is a long spread of history. But the Bakufu, a lot of the time, had even more power than the emperor did. And there were wars back and forth. Some fought on battlefields and some fought politically, where, the emperor would try to take back control from the Bakufu and the Bakufu would put that down. So you have a period of history where there's sort of this revolving door of who's holding power. And at times the emperor does, and at other times he doesn't. And that does eventually lead to the culmination, right, of the kind of one of their great reformations where the samurai are defeated with Western assistance. Firearms, that sort of thing. The way of the samurai, sunsets, and the emperor reclaims power until the end of World War II.
Yep, and
by and
that's
large.
that's by and large. That's the short end of.
There's
that whole
still
thing.
an emperor, right? But like more of a figurehead than a person in full supreme power.
Yeah, and it does that right around after, because after World War II, the emperor leaves, but then we have Japan as it gets modernized. But that happens before that. That's a different period.
Yeah, they have a great undertaking where they send a bunch of ships out. But that's not necessarily related to ninja, though they may have a part to play in it. That remains to be seen.
Always lurking in the shadows.
Right, exactly. So ninja, as we know, and I guess if I may, Leo, just kind of
go for it.
As we know them, or I spelled it wrong. That's really embarrassing in my notes. Shinobi no Mono are these now sort of mystical figures where they can disappear in a puff of smoke and they can, run on walls and run on water and they can do no wrong. I mean, they're peerless assassins and that sort of thing. And sure, there is some historical precedence for that, but by and large, they are a hired force of people. One of my favorite anecdotes from Japanese history. So Nobunaga Oda, one of the three great unifiers of Japan, meets with a rival of his by the name of Matsudaira Motoyasu, who later becomes known as Tokugawa Ieyasu, who's the third of the three great unifiers. Tokugawa is a bit younger, or I guess at this time Motoyasu is a little bit younger than than Nobunaga is. But they meet at this time. Motoyasu is a vassal under a different lord, and he comes. Nobunaga invites him to the palace, the castle, puts it on big, a very public display, being like, "Yeah, no, come on down, like let's hang out." A bunch of people gather around to see this guy. He's there. And they have a meeting, a very public meeting, and then he leaves. His lord at the time, Motoyasu's lord, was a man by the name of Imagawa Ujizane, and he's kind of a lesser-known historical figure. He did not last all that long, but as was the sort of flavor of the time, there's this thing called Sankin Kotai, and there's another term that I can't recall off the top of my head, but it's basically where if you serve a lord, your family lives where the lord does. You don't. So if you have like a hereditary estate, if you have a castle somewhere, if you've got land that is familial to you, you can live there, but your family has to live where your lord is. That way, if you start to plan an uprising against them, they are capable of, kind of stopping that by threatening your family. It's pretty crazy.
Family is collateral.
Yeah, basically. And so he has Motoyasu's family captive, and all of his other, families of his retainers as well. It's not just Motoyasu. But Motoyasu comes back, and his lord is like, "Hey, what was with that meeting? What's up with that? What are you doing?" And he was like, "Oh, no. I was just like looking for information. I'm not planning anything." And he's like, "You're not going to betray me, are you? Because you know what's going to happen." And he's like, No. I'm not going to betray you. I promise. We are square." And then he kept meeting with Oda Nobunaga in secret, forming an alliance with him, absolutely planning on betraying him. Well, as part of this, he really wants his family back, right? He's like, "Hey, my family, I want to make sure they're safe. I've got a son, a wife, and we just had a young daughter who was just born recently. I got to get him out from underneath this guy's thumb." So he hires a man from the Kaga province named Tomosuke Sada. Tomosuke Sada hires 80 men, he and 80 of his men, sneak into Kaminojo Castle, where they don uniforms of the enemy, they communicate in passwords and catchphrases, they sneak in, they light it on fire, they then kill the lord who's there, which is a relative of this lesser-known daimyo, the Ujizane's cousin, I believe it is. They kill this lord at the castle, they take this lord's two sons, and then Tokugawa Ieyasu uses these two sons as collateral for his own family. And this was all brought about by shinobi. They snuck in, they burned it down, they murdered the lord, they took these sons, they traded them for collateral. Like, bing, bang, boom, one step after the other. One more anecdote a little bit later on. Oda Nobunaga is kind of my area of interest. I find him fascinating. He's kind of not a nice man per se, but fascinating. So he's beefing with this guy named Ashikaga Yoshiaki. The Ashikaga family is a big samurai family from way back. Mm-hmm. They held power at one point. Now the Nobunaga clan's kind of on the rise. He's trying to unify Japan at this point. I don't think he's quite ready to unify Japan, but he's gaining power.
Not at that point.
So
but he is getting closer.
Yoshiaka hires a shinobi of the Koga clan, which is a pretty well-known samurai clan. Koga and Iga kind of being two of the more famous, though there were more than just that. A guy by the name of Sugitani Zenjubo, who was well known for his skill with a long-barreled arquebus. So they had guns at this time. For those of you who don't know, ninjas use guns. I know. Put aside your fantasies. I'm so sorry to say it. Ninjas used guns.
No jutsu.
Kind of, right? They got him from the Dutch and the Portuguese, most of all. America was not quite in the picture as of yet. But, our forefathers, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
He's hired. He hides in a bush for like 2-3 days on this road where he knows Oda Nobunaga is going to be traveling through with his people. He gets 2 shots off at Nobunaga, and with one shot with each different gun, and then runs away, disappears, just pieces out. Both of these shots hit. And this is one of the coldest thing. I'm quoting from a book called Sengoku Jidai by Danny Chaplin, because I love this quote and I wanted to get it right. Quote, Nobunaga's armor saved him, and later, in quote, later that evening, when removing it, 2 metal projectiles plopped out of the paddings, to which he said, quote, "When it is our time, fate will decree it," end quote. Which was his laconic comment on the incident. This guy gets shot twice, survives, sees the bullets, and is like, well, ninjas, I guess. What are you going to do when it's our time? We're going to go.
What you gonna do?
And so these are 2 fairly well documented from primary and secondary sources accountings of shinobi enacting certain, I guess, legerdemain that we would ascribe to ninjas in popular culture here in the West, right? Sneaking in, donning different clothing, blending in, causing mayhem, I guess, and then also an attempted assassination or unaliving. I don't know. Can we say assassination on Spotify? I'm gonna go with it. It is what it is. Yeah. I forget what social media rules are because certain places prefer you to say different things. I digress. So those are two clear-cut examples, right, of ninjas in history doing what I would say ninja stuff.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say, Ernest? I'm sorry.
No. I was just gonna say, yeah. I typically say an unplanned exit from this.
Ooh, I love that. I'll have to adapt that. So yeah, and then obviously there's a lot of different. I mean, Hattori Hanzo, not Hattori Hanzo. Oh my god, I can't remember his name now. I'm gonna scratch that. A lot of ninjas, well known. Some more famous than others. Obviously, there is some discrepancy between what they could do, what they couldn't do. Some of their accomplishments may be embellished, right? But I do find it fascinating that historically we do have precedent for ninja as we think of them today. Maybe they weren't throwing smoke bombs and wearing all black. They were wearing the uniforms of an enemy army, but still a covert group of people doing ninja stuff.
Yeah, people do ninja stuff. That's what they do.
True.
But no, we kind of have that colloquialism for different things. We have the presence of what is it? One of the tests to be a knight is to climb the wall in full armor. Who does that? That armor is 200 plus pounds. It weighs a ton. But somebody had to have done it to get through there. We have what is it? We have for cowboys, for example, we in the Wild West, we have people who are famously drawing pistols at dawn and getting into these duels.
Quick draw.
Do we have any precedents of anyone who does that? Well, we kind of do. Wyatt Earp is famous for having been in thousands of gunfights and never getting shot once. It just sometimes happens.
You got that one person who's just really, really lucky.
Or really good. There's who knows what happened on that. But when you have a historical precedence of that, then what happens is that they can turn into legend, like Robin Hood. Yeah. We have historical precedence that says that there's probably a guy like Robin Hood running around, but it becomes this sort of legend of different things for archery, and they actually call it the Robin Hood shot, which is where you have an arrow that you can hit with another arrow. It's a very, very difficult shot to make.
They split Robin's arrow in twain.
Hang on, according to the rules, I get another shot.
Love that movie.
Love that.
But yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I think a lot of these popular culture icons, right, whether it's knights or Vikings or cowboys or ninjas, or samurai as well, do stem from a kind of kernel of historical truth, right? Were there people who were quick drawing pistols at dawn? Hopefully not at dawn. That was pretty early to get up to die.
I'll wait.
At high noon. Yeah. Historically it happened. Now, did it happen like we see in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly? Well, I mean, maybe, but there's some wiggle room there.
Mm-hmm. But wiggle room makes it go into legend, and plus those stories are cooler.
Yeah,
if you have that.
Oh, I mean, as cool as a bunch of dudes sneaking in wearing uniforms and burning a place down is, right? Which that is kind of neat from a historical story. It's way cooler to imagine one lone wolf in, dark black clothing disappearing into the shadows in a puff of smoke, climbing the walls with his bare hands, and this, that, and the other thing. that's way cooler, right?
Yeah, but it's
which
not
is a
unheard
good
of,
story.
even in modern military context, right? Like whenever special missions have to happen, you're not sending in an entire brigade of combat soldiers, right? You're sending in a special forces troop that's usually 6 or less people
Yeah.
to do whatever needs to be done.
Yeah.
And then they're out in a Black Hawk helicopter that's basically a puff of smoke.
Yeah.
Right? So like, does life imitate art, or is it the other way around?
True.
Who knows? Sometimes 6-1. But this is where we get the art of the historical precedents for that one. Once we start moving into pop culture, that has to deal more with media. Like early on for that, it's about the early 1900s. So turn of the century and such. One of the biggest inventions that we have is, and I brought this up in previous episodes, is pulp novelization, but specifically how you make paper cheaper. With that, we have two things that come out, especially around this time. There's been children's stories that get remade featuring ninjas. This is where we sort of have the precedents for that, and with them being published and coming out for that. Because if you're a historian, you don't know how important it is to have that much paper on hand for that one. In the 1900s as well, this is when we start seeing comics coming up, and different types of novelization. Like in the 1800s, we're getting into bigger ones for that, but that has to deal with more of how literacy becomes a bigger situation for it. But this is where we're starting to get stories being passed around, and stories get passed and passed around. I think, what is it? The only thing faster than the speed of light is gossip.
Oh, rumor. Yeah, I was gonna say it's a rumor. Yeah,
it's a rumor.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's some precedent for that one too. So like, we start seeing ninjas popping up, and especially with things on that nature. I don't have a whole lot within the early 1900s because they seem to be more around of associating them as children's stories that are locally in Japan for that one.
Well, there are, people who study martial arts that is ninjutsu, right? Like there are places
that's a thing. Yeah.
You can go in Japan, and there are people there who have studied a martial art based around ninjas. Now again, right, whether or not it is the Western pop culture pulp fiction idea of ninjas or more of the historical precedent, I can't say. I'm not an expert, not as far as that's concerned, but I think I know which one I would hedge my bets on. But yeah, like you absolutely could hypothetically go to Japan and train under a modern day student of ninjutsu, right?
Yeah, and it makes sense that, at least for most Americans, right, World War II was kind of the place where those cultures collided, right? Because pre-World War II, there was engagement between the two countries, but not like World War II and post-World War II, right? So that's really where we saw the two kind of merge, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, so let's hop a bit ahead of that one. So we're now from the 40s to the 30s and 40s, but now we're post-World War II. One of the things that are happened, that's the big thing of this, is film and different movies for it. So, and with that, a big name, especially in the 50s, is Akira Kurosawa. Kurosawa is an amazing director. If you have any study of film or film history, watch this guy's works. They're amazing.
So good.
Mm-hmm. And we've talked about him in the previous episodes before, but Kurosawa has changed the game as far as this goes. But also, with that, Kurosawa is now with these bigger famous movies coming out. They are now bringing more information in. And I remember I was asking you about this earlier, because I know The Seven Samurai, that famous work, amazing movie, one of my favorites.
Real good.
Not a single ninja in that whole thing. But there are other films that have ninjas in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was, what is it? I believe it's not Yojimbo. That one doesn't have. I think it might be there's the ninjas in Yojimbo, but I don't remember that one. Akira Kurosawa is one of the big reasons why we have Japanese movies coming out. There's not a whole lot of ninjas in Godzilla, I unfortunately, but that's another big famous.
I was like, that's a whole different genre. That's kaiju. Like
that's kaiju.
That's a whole different genre. It's one of my favorite genres. I mean, I love Pacific Rim, and I know a lot of people give that movie grief, but that's a whole different. Yeah.
Fantastic movie, 10 out of 10.
The first big worldwide precedence we have actually starts moving around in the 60s. Now, and Ernest brings up a great point with this one, and it's something that happens that we see whenever you see a large influence of typically military-wise with another country, like in the U.S.'s case at that time would have been the Korean War and the Vietnam War. They bring back different influences. Like that's the rise of the martial arts films, comes from people who went to see these in during wartime, and then when they came back, they want to see more of those films and they get influenced on it. That's a little jumping ahead because that's the big reason why we have so many martial arts films in the 60s and 70s for it. But
to kind of circle back to your previous point as well, right? And this is going to span, a number of years, because Kurosawa made 30 movies in like 6 different decades. Dude was crazy busy.
He's busy.
But The Hidden Fortress in 1958 definitely has ninjas, as we would think of them today. Love that movie. Very good, very underrated, I think. And then Kagemusha takes place in the Sengoku period. I want to say 1560, 1570. And that deals with ninjas as well. I mean, ninjas are present in the film. It doesn't really deal with ninjas. It's more about samurai, which is more the focus of most of his movies. But samurai are Ronin, but yeah. So, and then that's in, I believe, 1980, 1982, something like that. So in the 80s, right, flash forward, technology's changed a little bit, but still making stories about samurai, still making stories about ninja. Kurosawa is at this time.
Yeah, no, he has, I think, he has a ton of works. It's not, if you're talking about sheer amount, I think Roger Corman has you beat, but sure. Roger Corman, like, he's famous for making B films all over the place, and, like, he's one of the few directors that has directed 9 movies on his first year. Most directors are lucky to get one.
One, yeah. And I mean, B movies are another area I love. That I don't know why. It's just like those people. There's so much heart that goes into B movies. I think that's what it is.
So going around into this historically, like the first worldwide big thing actually for that features a ninja is actually a James Bond movie. It's You Only Live Twice. So it's made in 1967. It features heavily in the entire plot line of that as in Japan. And you have a worldwide scape of just being able to travel across the world with your man James Bond. You're going to feature whatever that they have there. So, so if you're having a James Bond movie taking place in Jamaica, there's a voodoo priestess somewhere in that movie. It's just going to happen. If you're going into Spain, you have some castanets dancers. You're in the Monaco, gambling, tons and tons of gambling.
James Bond, not exactly known for its like cultural sensitivity, right?
Oh yeah, no,
not so much. So like, what's the one thing we can point to where you'd be like, oh, they're here? Yeah, let's just do that.
It's like, let's find the stereotype and then just blast it on screen. That's what works.
That's what makes a good story.
Or at least that makes it quick hands for that one. I mean, even in Goldfinger, it was a bunch of like a lot of the things, colloquial things. Because at the end of that movie, where's your fancy little place you're going to? Tennessee, Fort Knox.
And I was going to say, if it wasn't for that heavy trope usage in those movies, we wouldn't have got the Austin Powers series, right?
Yeah,
so
that's true.
Which is hilarious on that. It's a parody of, ironically, this movie with the ninjas in it.
Yeah, I was like, it's a parody of a series full of stereotypes. It's kind of like, the meta on that one is just on another level, you know?
Oh, that's such a good movie too. But one of the things that James Bond has to deal with is ninjas keep coming out, and a sumo wrestler at some point. I remember that part. They're just gonna come out of the woodwork if you don't stop. But here's where we get this influence. Now, after about the 60s, more towards the latest 60s, early 70s, this is when we start getting into martial arts films, and actually Roger Corman's kind of responsible for a lot of this. At least for filming wise, kind of like what we have now. A lot of TV shows and films are made in Canada because the tax benefits of doing that are really good and really a nice way to make things a lot cheaper for it.
And New Zealand.
Especially if you want to token something. If you want your Tolkien Lord of the Rings, we've got you covered in New Zealand.
I mean, speaking of samurai and ninja, a lot of the seasons of Power Rangers were filmed in New Zealand as well.
Oh my god.
Especially into the Disney era.
Oh yeah.
Just as a note.
We'll definitely circle back to Power Rangers when we get past the 90s.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
You can't have
Matter of
Midgard
fact,
on here
yeah, I was
and
going
not
to say
talk
they're
about
rising
Power
again
Rangers.
because I've been seeing stuff all over about them all of a sudden. So I don't know
They're
what's
in
going
Fortnite
on.
now, so,
Yeah.
they've made it.
All right, we made it. But no, so you would film cheaply there, and this will come back especially in the 80s for that.
Oh yeah.
And they would make the movies for it. And so what happens is that since a lot of these ninja-based movies and such are very kind of low budgety, but the people they bring into I think Grindhouse movie theaters used to show them a lot for those back in the 70s. If you don't know what a Grindhouse is, it's nicknamed for that because they would get a bunch of movies and they would literally grind it out. So you would start like at 10 a.m. and you just pour movie after movie after movie almost nonstop until you get to about midnight or such. So what they wanted more was quantity versus quality. You're not getting your big cinematic experience here, but you can get a lot of like cheap movies that you can go see. And they were supposed to be the cheap seats for it. But that doesn't mean that they don't have heart. If you ever listen to some big directors, a lot of them, especially if they were around like kids or teenagers in the 70s, would go check out these Grindhouse films. Just so that way they can have check out these movies. The 70s is where we get a lot of this input of like Asian culture films that come over here.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, there's I don't know if it still goes on because I know it was before COVID. They have a thing called Butnumathon. If you haven't heard about that, but it's like a 24. That's exactly what they do. It originally started, I think, to celebrate some guy's birthday. They basically just rent out a theater and show movies back to back, 24 hours straight. Yeah,
That sounds awesome.
Oh wow.
That's an endurance run. That's what that
And
is.
that's why it's named Butnumathon. It's literally that.
But yeah, like if we want to get the biggest influence of the 70s, especially early on, there is no other more famous martial artist than Bruce Lee.
Yes, and we are bridging out, right? We're moving like martial arts in general, different continent,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Just
Not ninjas,
right.
but martial arts.
But martial arts films will have a ninja or two.
Some of them do, yeah.
I know they have them in Fist of Fury.
Right.
It's a brief parts, but they do have them there.
Well, it's, at some point, the ninjas had it was a good way of instituting like one faceless henchman, so you just had a lot of people on hand who you could turn as extras. You just wrap them up in a face mask, and all of a sudden you had the guise of a ninja. But they also culturally at this point had already taken on the skilled warrior aspect. So you weren't just putting in a bunch of random people. You were putting in a group of competent and like dangerous enemies as either being part of your team or the other team. So you were coming in here with that like kind of preloaded, and it was shorthand in film at the time to be like, okay, we have a bunch of cool people for you to tear through, or a lot of people that are going to give your army credence.
Yeah, no, and to that point, I think that's actually really, really a great talking point in that if you look at like Into the Dragon, there are a bunch of martial artists in that movie, but they are, I mean, like a young Jackie Chan is in that movie, but he's an unnamed henchman, right? And he has no mask. He fights as he does. Bruce Lee walks basically right through him. There are a number of like unnamed thugs, but that has a different connotation even than, to Ashwood's point, then, you see someone who's dressed as we would think of as a ninja in popular culture, and they are these warriors, these martial artists. They know what they're doing. While yes, Jackie Chan's character and the other henchmen in that movie are dressed as fighters, right, as martial artists, it does not quite have the same ring to it or the same cinematic appeal to it as like, oh, this is a ninja. Like I think while I think people in the culture could understand the context, I think people in the West primarily may not have been able to make that distinction of, oh, this guy's wearing a blue robe, so naturally he's a martial artist and he knows what he's doing. But they see a ninja and they go, oh, I know what that is. I know what that means. As Ashwood said, shorthand that's an incredible way to put it.
unless we have any other notes real quick on the 70s, we got to move on to the 80s, which is the big ninja boom.
I was gonna say this is it right here. This is the jackpot.
This is it.
True.
This is where it's getting real.
This is what I say to this day. Like the 80s were the best decade to grow up.
Formerly the 70s. Go watch Enter the Dragon. It's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
No ninjas, but it's incredible.
It's an amazing movie. Enter the Dragon is an amazing movie.
Mm-hmm.
But so before we get started with this, I want to make a quick note on something that we have to kind of explain, because this is where things are going to get crazy. There's a thing in cinema which is the exploitation of an option for it. We will see that in the 70s with blaxploitation films, but that's not the only ones that are out there. And then we see smaller trends for that for different exploitation films, depending on what they're doing. So why do I bring this up? Because in the 80s, there was a movie called Conan the Barbarian. Okay. Since Conan the Barbarian comes out, we now have a sword and sorcery exploitation that just happens, which is why you have so many of those in the 80s. And they are fun. I'm not saying any of them are they're not your pinnacle of thing, but man, are they fun for that one. But in the 70s, we also had Western exploitation, which is cowboys and such, where we have spaghetti westerns, because you have to have one decent hit that makes things that runs that trend, and then everyone else will try to follow that. Right. So like in the 60s, we had some of the bigger spaghetti westerns, like, why can't I think of it? Like For a Few Dollars More. No, For a Few Dollars. Fistful of Dollars. That's the name of the movie I was thinking of. Mm-hmm. And then with that, we have tons of westerns that are filmed over in Italy really cheaply, so that way they can make a ton of those, like The Wild Bunch and The Good, Bad, the Ugly, For a Few Dollars More, and a variety. Most of these are Clint Eastwood movies. Or, as I thought was a joke, turned out it was real, a musical called Paint Your Wagon. I thought that was just made up for a Simpsons joke. Turns out that's a real movie.
Mm-hmm.
You also have like True Grit and a couple of other movies like that. So why do I bring this up? Because in the 80s, we have, for our purpose of this episode, a little movie called Enter the Ninja, which is about basically ninjas coming in as a low-cost schlocky film, but it was fun for everybody and immensely profitable. And since then, there's been more and tons of ninja movies and ninja things in the 80s. So, to those of the audience who is listening right now, you're going to hear a kind of shotgun approach to our ninjas at this point, because that's how the 80s worked with ninjas.
Well, I find it kind of funny, there were a lot of these films where you see typically a white protagonist embroiled all of a sudden in ninja controversy. The one that I go to is The Equals, or not The Equals, it's The Challenge, 1982.
The Challenge, yeah.
It's got Scott Glenn, I think, but more importantly, Toshiro Mifune is in it. And I'll watch any movie with that man, to be honest. But, you have these all American, Americana main characters who somehow, through happenstance, end up embroiled in like a ninja war or, a turf fight or what have you.
Or even better, they have a latent ninja mastery that they don't know about, and it just surfaces. And you know exactly what I'm talking about, right? Just the way you laughed at that one, I'm like, I know you know what I'm talking about.
100%. And it's such a trope, right? But it was popular at the time.
It sold. You can't complain. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
God,
This is where the hype train for ninjas become fully real. So one of the things they did is that in the 80s they had G.I. Joe, a real American hero, and they were presented. And in the 80s, early 80s, we have we're making this cartoon to sell toys. That is our premise. There's not much that comes around with that, and we explained that in our animation episode. But with this, one of the things they did is that they had to get a set of characters on it. In history, from what they learned from Barbie of all things, if you can make up a good storyline to go with your toys, they sell better. And so they start that with He-Man is the big first run of that. So G.I. Joe is not going to and G.I. Joe has been a toy in the 60s before. Like, I think they're like 12. They were actually pretty cool toys. They're like 12-inch action figures, and they were bendable. But it was one guy, Joe of the G.I. Joe, for the most part. But now we're going into this one, and they're like, hey, Marvel Comics, could you write us some stuff for G.I. Joe? And Marvel's like, sure, we did it with Conan, we'll do it with you guys on that one. Yeah, if you're curious, technically in the 60s, in the 70s, 80s canon, G.I. Joe is an offshoot of S.H.I.E.L.D. That's their premise to be in there.
Well, and Joe was in response directly, if I remember correctly, to Barbie's popularity. They wanted to do a Barbie for boys, basically.
Yeah,
Right.
that's the idea behind G.I. Joe, which the guy's name is actually also Joe.
Yo, Joe.
Yo, Joe. With this, so they introduced a bunch of characters. They were like literally going, all right, we're gonna have Duke, who's a cool soldier. We're gonna have Roadblock, who's and they have specific positions and ranks. Who's like a staff sergeant, and he's his specialty is defensive, and they go down this list, and I think, and Snake Eyes, the ninja, is on that first 8 list. They didn't even wait until they get to the top 10. They're like, no, we need a ninja in here now.
So I'll admit, I got into Joe a little late, and it didn't hook me like Transformers or Turtles or other properties did.
Fair.
Why does he have a gambling addiction that I don't know about? Like, why is he called Snake Eyes?
They call him Snake. They never actually explain why they call him Snake Eyes.
I would assume, like, I don't know if you all saw the amazing Netflix show that was about Kublai Khan.
Yeah.
But there is a monk in there who's blind, and his name is 100 Eyes.
That's true.
And and he's a blind monk that just tears it up. I mean, as a matter of fact, I think he was supposed to get his own little spin-off, if I'm not mistaken, and then that whole thing went down. You know how that goes. But yeah, I think that was probably a play on the fact that the vision aspect of the ninjas and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it seems very like you have all these call signs for people. Shipwreck is a Navy sailor. Okay,
right.
I can kind of get behind that. That kind of makes some sense to me. Snake Eyes, he's a ninja. Oh, okay.
Yeah, and maybe it's something to do with like the fact that snakes, quote unquote, see with heat, and who knows.
And they strike fast.
Like Storm Shadow always made sense to me as a kid, right? That sounds kind of like
that makes sense.
As a child, I was like, that's a ninja name, Storm Shadow. It makes sense. But Snake Eyes was always one of those ones where I was like, I just don't quite know where that comes from. If you know, if you happen to know,
or maybe the writer had a gambling, or he lost everything on a set of Snake Eyes, and that was his way of letting it out.
Maybe. Listeners, if you know, let us know in the comments, please, because I am genuinely curious.
Yeah, but one thing I did want to point out is, like, to your mention about Marvel, even Cobra Commander, right, with the whole and the entire like snake motif, that's not far removed from Hydra. So, there was a lot of cross pollination between those two.
So funny enough, that wasn't when they first came up with the toy line. They didn't come up with an antagonist for their toy line. They never heard of them.
Not originally. I mean, later down the road.
Not originally, but Marvel helped come up with the idea for Cobra Commander, and then they were like, "All right, we're going to work with this."
Yeah, he's just one of the things of Hydra. That's pretty much
Okay, don't steal my work. Just make sure it doesn't look. It changes itself around.
Change it around. Change my homework around. Yeah.
If you want to wonder how crazy 80s cartoons can get, G.I. Joe's a fantastic thing.
Absolutely. Ninja Turtles too.
They can go crazy. No matter what, I love, and I will tell this story. Like, I always want to get a group together to watch my favorite episode of G.I. Joe, because as a kid, this didn't make sense, but it made me laugh. Because I understood, like, the time when G.I. Joe beat the Cobra entirely, because Cobra Commander didn't file his taxes properly, and the IRS just took all his stuff.
It can happen to anybody. That's why you need a ninja accountant.
That's why you need an accountant,
right?
Ninja accountant.
Hey, even Capone couldn't get away from them.
Yeah. True.
Even the Joker's afraid of the IRS.
Yeah, understandably so. kind of bounce off of Marvel there, this is a little bit of an older property. 78 is Spider-Man, the Japanese live-action Spider-Man TV show where he's basically a Power Ranger. Hello, Mochi, this is my cat. Where he's basically a Power Ranger, like I was saying, before Power Rangers was ever a thing, before Super Sentai it really kind of took off. I think this happens around the Battle Fever J era, but made in collaboration with Marvel, and he knows ninjutsu. Like, this Spider-Man knows ninjutsu. He's known as the Emissary of Hell, which is quite the title. But he's a ninja for all intents and purposes.
Yeah,
Marvel Comics loves ninjas.
Yeah, they do.
I still remember that, like, American Ninja Warrior, like that.
Yeah.
Oh my god!
Like, I mean, just the way that stuff weaved into the cultural zeitgeist of the time was just amazing.
Oh, it's so fun to watch. Speaking of ninjas on that, so there isn't really a mention of too many ninjas in Marvel until the 80s, and then they just sort of went hard. In the Marvel comics, there's a group called The Hand. It is literally every ninja that we can find just works here for this one spot. My favorite running gag that they have is a lot of the Marvel superheroes don't like fighting the Hand because they know what they're doing, and it's fighting a bunch of ninjas. However, for a change of pace, though, they smell fantastic. I don't know what's happening, but it's immaculate to take them on.
Wow.
Like, they have, it's like, man, never fight the Mole Man. He's never washed his clothes since the 30s, I swear. But no, if you're going to fight someone, fight the Hand. Yeah, it's an army of ninjas and that kind of sucks, but it's a great fun time for everyone. You don't feel gross afterwards.
If you survive it, yep.
And it's like, and they show up everywhere. The Hand has to deal with Wolverine. The Hand has to deal with Daredevil. At some point, they deal with, like, all these other superheroes.
Heroes for Hire.
You go to Japan. It's kind of your weird travel episode. All right, I'm a superhero. I'm going to go to Japan. Oh, no, now I got to fight the Hand.
I mean, sometimes they come to you, though, right? Like,
yeah.
Sometimes they're messing stuff up in Harlem or wherever, and you got to fight them there, too.
Yeah, they're just everywhere if you watch it.
Yeah. Different genre, but The Last Dragon.
Yes.
Was that The Last Dragon? Yeah.
Yeah, I said different genre, but The Last Dragon is another great film of this era.
Yes, it is. Kind of speaking on Daredevil and The Hand, the next, I think, well-known ninja group that you could ascribe in pop culture being The Foot, sharing a common through line. Daredevil, Turtles, they're related. I find it interesting that is a direct response, much like Daredevil was to Slade Wilson. They've got the Hand, so I guess we've got The Foot. The Ninja Turtle villains, Shredder. Oh man, it doesn't even matter what incarnation of Shredder you're talking about. Dude is just cool as hell looking. I mean, just menacing, very ninja-esque, right? Still wearing a mask, but like he's got all these spikes and these metal pieces. God, I don't know. I could talk about the Turtles for forever, I think.
Yeah.
Like that movie, Turtles Forever.
Yeah.
Oh, although if you want if you want a movie that will have you have too many ninjas, which is never a bad thing, see if you can find at some point Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles versus Batman. Because you have Ra's al Ghul and all of his ninjas, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and Shredder and his ninjas. That's just so many ninjas.
Are Ra's al Ghul's ninjas, or are they assassins?
They're assassins, but they're also ninjas.
Yeah, are they, though?
Yes. So it depends on which assassin you're talking about.
Sure. But
they're called the League of Shadows, Dane. They're ninjas.
They're ninjas by association, and most of them are ninjas, but not all of them are ninjas.
But they spun out from assassins, did they not?
Yeah.
I think there's a point at which because remember, those are two distinct different, like one comes out of Middle Eastern culture, right? And one is out of Far Eastern culture. But at some point they merged, right? And you ended up with kind of them because, all the way through to the modern era now, assassins and ninjas kind of, they might dress differently, but they're basically the same,
Yeah.
And
character
I don't
type.
Very good
know
point.
this specifically, but I would not surprise me, right? So this is just my supposition. If the dark cloak masked figure that we ascribe to ninjas, if that came initially from the assassins, right? Typically speaking, in the Middle East, you got
that's what I
priest
would
coverings.
think, right? We
Yeah.
have to guess, right? We have to guess, but it would make sense that because the hashashim that eventually became known as modern day assassins, that was one of their trademarks. Is that even if they did it in broad daylight, you couldn't tell who it was that did it, and then they vanished.
So I almost wonder if through sort of the to use a historical terminology, right? The Orientalism craze that was present in pop culture and in the history at the time. If maybe they just conflated those two things and were like, oh, it's the same thing. These are the same group of people, and it kind of became one nacho, right?
Yeah. It's like a super nacho.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I know that there has been attempts to kind of weave all of those together in like some kind of dark society that's actually global and exists across all continents, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're kind of all tied together. But yeah, they're very similar. So it would make sense that there was, I don't know who predated who, but
it's hard to say.
Yeah, because you definitely went from a point in the world where all conflicts were on a battlefield face to face, right? And then at some point we kind of went away to what I would call like special forces warfare, right? Where it's like in and out very quick, nobody saw who did it kind of deal. And and as a matter of fact, that's why when you see what's going on in the world today, like over in Europe, it's like, wow, I haven't seen that kind of action since World War One. It's been completely different. So yeah, it's just how these tropes developed over time is super interesting.
Yeah.
Although the cheesiness of the 80s ninjas are never going to go away. I love that there is, like, what was I going to say? So I love that there is Enter the Ninja, Ninja 2, Ninja 3, and I think there's something like Ninja 4, but it's The Revenge, and it used to be a joke that you would have your primary one movie, the sequel to that one, but by the time you get to number 4, you have to have Revenge, and there has to be a ninja involved.
Revenge of the Blank, yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
One of those kind of interesting tropes too, now that we were talking about the costumery of ninjas in pop culture, I think it's very interesting because everybody knows, right? There's a hierarchy to ninjas that you can see visibly on screen in terms of video games and sometimes in movies as well, right? Where you've got your black wear clothed ninjas, and they're like your foot soldier ninjas. They're the base rank. You don't have to worry about these guys. They're no big deal. They're dime a dozen, right? At certain points. And then I believe it's red ninjas that are next. Yeah, those are like, okay, these are like your lieutenants. Like they're a bit scarier. There's less of them, but they're stronger, typically speaking. And then you've got your white clad ninjas, and those are the guys you got to watch out for. Those are your leader ninjas.
Because you can see them coming. There's no hiding from that.
Right.
That's the thing. How close you go from shadow to light.
Yeah.
Oh, I can see them. The only thing that stops a ninja, from my understanding of 80s schlock movies, is martial artists wearing jeans and a mullet.
True.
That'll take him down.
Watch out, jeans and a mullet. That's awesome. And one of the things I want to point out here too is like you got to remember that whole era, like that Reagan era, right, where America was just kind of it had just come out of the massive economic recession of the 70s, right, stagflation and all this stuff, and in an attempt to get out of it and to grow the economy faster, they deregulated a whole lot of things, good and bad. One of them was the whole concept around what was considered family friendly TV and stuff like that. So in the 80s, a lot of that deregulation allowed things like the Ninja Turtles and G.I. Joe to come on the TV that wouldn't have been there before at the rating it was at. And it kind of shocked me because my kids, they're now 3 and 5. And when my daughter was about 4, I started her on 80s Ninja Turtles because nice. I'm raising my kids on 80s stuff first. But I went back to watch it first to make sure it wasn't, because you know how the 80s was. And sure enough, there are.
If you've been in the 80s, you know that you gotta.
Yeah.
So not everything can be family friendly. That is family friendly. Some of the scariest movies I know are from the 80s family friendly sections.
Exactly. So I haven't let them watch G.I. Joe yet because that one's a little bit on the nose. But Turtles. But it's even then it's like it's literally just cartoon violence, right, on TV. And I mean, it's great. I enjoyed it as a kid. That's what's crazy is that we watched it as kids and nobody batted an eye about it, right? And we did a lot of stuff in the 80s that nobody batted an eye
True.
at. And we're all still alive, so that's okay. But yeah, it's true. I think about it with my kids and I'm like, would I have let my kids watch this back in the 80s? Probably. But you're right. There's just so many. And the Turtles, like, it wasn't just the ninjas side of it. It was also like the bringing in the extra dimensional stuff, right? There were so many things that they brought in, and just the pure comical, like the thing with the pizza, right? Like the Turtles love pizza. It's like, where on earth does that matter? Well, it doesn't, except for the 80s. There was a huge surge in the popularity of pizza, right? So like all these things just fed into each other. So it's like a massive consumerism, just feedback loop that started like feels like it started in like 79 and just rolled right through the 80s into the 90s.
Between that,
it happened so naturally, didn't notice.
Between that and the Goofy movie, I've been chasing that pizza high my entire life. I've never found a pizza that tastes as good as those pizzas looked. Right? I don't know if it exists. It's the holy grail for me. But man, you're absolutely right. Pizza was everywhere. Ninjas and pizza, they go together apparently.
Ninjas and pizza, and then to Leo's point earlier about the sword and sorcery stuff, that was the big rise of tabletop D&D, which also ushered in the Satanic Panic, which actually gave Ozzy his platform, right? So like there's so many things that just wove together in that era. It's almost impossible to detangle them.
Well, I think it was because of the Satanic Panic and because, Ninja Turtles and G.I. Joe and all these other cartoons were seen as violent that you do get the crackback in the 90s, right? I remember there were mother groups against things like Power Rangers because it was, investing violence in their children and teaching their children, how to beat each other up on the schoolyard as if they weren't already going to be doing that. But, they chose instead to blame entertainment. And I think it was directly in response to the fact that the 80s had gone on for so long with these violent TV shows, and no one had batted an eye about it. But then they woke up in the 90s and were like, wait, hold on. Real people are throwing punches? When it was Turtles or like Army Men, that was one thing. But
they're just always trying to find someone to blame instead of just admitting they're bad parents.
California teenagers can't have it. Sorry.
Oh, it's great to go back and watch news clips from the 80s about the stuff that they were so offended by. And you look at it today and you're like, wow, it must be awesome to like have such a simple life that's what bothers you. Like,
well, yeah, I mean, the internet wasn't a thing, right? So like everyone sort of had these small town values, at least around where I grew up, right? Yeah, and it was like, oh, they said a curse on TV. Heavens, clutch my pearls! I can't believe they do something like this. This book mentions demons.
And Karen's megaphone was literally the PTA, and that was it. It wasn't. Social media. So like it's completely, could you imagine if social media existed in the 80s? Oh, it would have been a riot.
Yeah.
Now in the 80s, we also have a fun little thing called the video game and the console.
The video game?
I've never heard of it.
Yep.
Do ninjas play video games?
No, but there's tons of video games with ninjas.
I don't know.
But it was also the rise of the VHS tape, which brought movies or films to home for the first time. Like we only had one TV in the house and it had a VCR and that's all we had. Right. So like if dad was monopolizing, that was the end of that one. Right.
Be kind, rewind.
But we were able to watch all these films at home that wasn't really there for the generations before us.
Oh yeah. There's this thing with Final Fantasy. This is one of the reasons why I wanted to bring up you guys with that.
Yeah.
That always amused me, and because Final Fantasy starts in the 80s and we'll move on to the 90s, so we'll get to the 90s and because we'll get to the Power Rangers soon. So here's the thing with that this is sort of where they have this interpretation of the rogue element. So Final Fantasy, you start off as a thief, okay? That's you, and
Final Fantasy
you get
1,
to change your class.
Original.
Start as a thief. And then I don't know, a ninja right afterwards on that.
Yeah, but the thing is though, in 1 you had to earn it. It wasn't like you had to do this special quest, and I want to say you had to defeat like the behemoth or something like that. And so it was like owning or honing, however you want to pronounce it, your profession to the point where a thief became a ninja. Right? It wasn't like just gifted to them; they had to actually go fight to earn it.
And this definitely feels like a response to me from Japan. 2 games like Shinobi, 2 games like Ninja Gaiden, they saw the popularity of these things popping off and were like, oh, ninjas are popular in the West. So naturally, we have this role-playing game. We've got a thief character who uses daggers. Why not throw in a ninja? That just makes sense. It is really kind of fascinating to me seeing Japan accept sort of I don't want to say a bastardization, but like for lack of a better word, kind of a Western interpretation of something that is in their historical context, and just kind of run with it. They're just like, oh yeah,
They leaned in.
Yeah,
they absolutely
not,
did.
Yeah, I was like, not just that, they ran with it. They didn't just accept it. They leaned in on that thing. So not only was it a thief and able to dual wield, they gave it black magic, like low level black magic as well.
Yeah.
And it was like, whoa, like this is crazy. What are you doing? Yeah.
You know that these are ninjas. I know. We need more ninjas on this.
And I
Yeah.
think there's nearly one in every Final Fantasy game. Not all of them, but most of them.
Not
I
all of them,
believe.
but in most there's either a ninja, an assassin, or both, right? So like again, the two kind of marry together in the series for sure.
And I don't want to leave the 80s without my favorite quote from a video game that sticks with me deep into my heart, which is, "Are you a bad enough dude to save the president from ninja-related activities?"
Yes.
Like that is the crux for that. And then after that, the only thing I'm like, you know what? Doesn't matter how cool it is. If my tombstone says death by ninja-related activities,
Dude,
I mean, there's a thing there.
Yeah.
You got to ask yourself what happened to him.
He wasn't a bad man, but sometimes he had to do bad things.
There you go. For those of you who came up after the 80s, it was a really rough time for a lot of people, a lot of ninja-related activities. The president always being attacked, it seems like. Ninjas always in the White House. Just absolutely crazy.
Well, I mean, if you think about it this way, the president at this time was like a D-list actor who could never make it to the echelon of ninjas in America. So I just want to point that out, right? Like the ninjas were better than the president of the United States at this point in time.
100%.
What's the old gag? And also, he's a ninja.
Yeah, and also he's a ninja. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, you just add that in as an extra. Oh, he builds robots in his spare time, and also he's a ninja.
Checks out.
So,
Checks out.
checks out. Yeah, not gonna argue with that one.
If you guys ever played Nightmare on Elm Street for the NES, it's not a great game. It's you have to go around collecting Freddy Krueger's bones. But the thing is that always bothered me is, oh no, I'm falling into sleep. I'm going to be trapped in the same world as Freddy Krueger, where I'm a ninja. That is literally a thing that happens. You turn into a ninja, and you can just now, well, you know what? I think I'll take my chances as taking him on as a ninja.
I mean, look, Freddy Krueger is real powerful. Don't get me wrong, but like, I think my money's on the ninja. To be honest,
Yeah.
like, he's beatable. Unlike Jason or other horror villains, like Freddy's beatable to an extent.
But also like when Freddy grew up, would he know what the modern ninja at his time would be like?
He could be a ninja too.
Nah. Ninjas are reserved for Dream Warrior.
That's kind of the ultimate ninja because he doesn't need a cloud of smoke. He just needs you to fall asleep.
Yeah.
Then you die in your sleep. You're like, what happened? That is an assassin on another level. Right?
He's like, I'm just that good.
I think we must now move on to the 90s.
We're in the 90s. Ashwood, go.
So, you can move on. I never will.
Always in our heart.
Oh, is it?
My best friend tells me all the time, he's like, what happened to you, man? You're like permanently stuck in the 80s. I'm like, because that was the happy time. That's why.
Yeah, I get you. Oh, but yeah, we go into the 90s, and probably the biggest thing for this, Power Rangers. The Turtles always counts as an 80s thing, even though they run for like 10 seasons. It's kind of
they extended a little bit over, but yeah, for sure the Power Rangers were like, and this is kind of where I kind of backed away a little bit at the Power Rangers. I watched a little bit of their stuff, but I wasn't really into it. But yeah, it's I would say the Power Rangers kind of took the mantle and ran with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because you had them. It's like whenever they needed a power up, they went with ninjas. Like I always remember watching the movie because I watched the movie on repeat, and it's like, oh, they're gonna lose their powers, and what's the next thing that's gonna happen? They're gonna go to a foreign planet, achieve like some kind of new level of powerdom, and what does that make them? It makes them ninjas.
They have to go through a
gives them
team building exercise first, though.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And what wasn't it? The Ninjetti, I think, was the power-up name.
Yeah.
Like, very on the nose.
And ninjas would be like kind of a go-to for the Power Rangers throughout the entirety of their continuum, because you had Ninjord, I think is his name.
Oh, Ninjor.
And he is the one who actually created the morphing grid in a lot of the canon.
Yeah,
And so
he
you
in association
have-
with the Morphin Masters, I believe.
Yeah. And so you have ninjas like interwoven into the Power Rangers canon, just as this.
But
this,
you know,
like, whole
you
thing
have to give them
develops.
credit though a little bit, because they did give credit back in those naming conventions, whereas a lot of other stuff in the 90s, they just incorporated the entire like ninja persona and never mentioned it. It was just built into the character, right?
That's
like
true.
look at Buffy the Vampire Slayer,
Yeah.
right? Like, I mean, literally a ninja, but without ever saying ninja. I mean, maybe they did. I don't remember them saying it, but a
Yeah, as
vampire fighting ninja, like that. That's how ingrained in the culture it became, that like, here's one of the scariest things we have: vampires. Who's going to kill them? A ninja, of course, right? It makes sense a ninja would take out a vampire.
Checks out.
I'd still love that though. By the way, I built the morphing grid. Built up the morphing grid. Also, I'm a ninja.
I mean, he looks like the ninja. Like, Ninja is such an interesting character, to Ashwood's point. Like, so in the West, he sounds much different than he does in the original dub, or the original voice recording in Japanese. But he's sort of this like silly character, and I don't know if they were like, well, he's a ninja, but like he's kind of like a mascot, so we'll give him a silly voice because he's like, I'm ninja. Like, he's very like bombastic and just, I mean, kind of silly. But you're absolutely right, Ashwood. You know, they're like, we need more power. They go to Ninjor. Oh, we're losing our power. Ninjor, what do we do? And he's like, go to this planet. They're like, cool, we'll do that. See you later. Now we're ninjas as well. So, like, you know, ninjas all the way down.
Have you thought of being more ninja? Because that's always helped Ninjor.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at some point, once everyone's a ninja, there are no ninjas, right? Because that's how it works.
Oh, no. If everyone's a ninja, is anyone a ninja? And I do think
the answer is yes.
Kind of funny in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers going into the third season. There's kind of two canons, right? Ashwood mentioned the movies canon where they go off world to another planet. They go, they meet Dulcea. She helps them attain their ninjetti powers, and then they come back with new Zords and new costumes, and they kick butt, right? But there's also the Mighty Morphin Alien Rangers, which is based off of a show that I believe is called Kaku Ranger in Japan, which is a ninja-based series in Japan. The Kaku Ranger are all ninja-based. They look like ninjas. But when these aliens from Aquitar is their planet, when they morph, they do their ninja-style morph as aliens and then become ninjas. So yet again, with the ninjas, so there's for those of you who've not seen Mighty Morphin Power Rangers in a long time, our heroes become children, as was pretty typical in the 80s and 90s, you know.
That's a plot line you always had to deal with.
You shrink or you become children. Like, that's just the thing that happens. It happened back then, simpler times. But they need someone to like fill in for them while they like get their mojo back, while they get their powers back. So these alien rangers, who are ninjas, fill in for a time and just protect Earth and then peace out once the Rangers get their adult forms back and become ninjas themselves. You know?
Right.
And we'll also be. Did you ever read The Tick, like the original 90s comics for The Tick?
I mean, no, I saw the cartoon, but I didn't read the comics.
That's fine. So with the original comics, one of the Tick's first like encounters over it is the Tick just shows up in the city to do superhero things, because that's the point of the Tick. And there's just gangs of ninjas all over the place. It is a part-time job you can have as being a ninja. It is legitimately like ninja is your... Also, to a past point, in G.I. Joe, that is Snake Eye's job. He's Snake Eye's official ninja. That's it.
I'm
You
in
could
the
be a
wrong
staff sergeant.
the wrong freaking field. I need to mix it up.
So, like, I mean, they never put that in some of the military brochures. You could you could work on computers, high-tech equipment. You could work on a submarine, or be a ninja. Where was that one?
Yeah.
It's just There's a light item for
that was American Ninja Warrior. That's what that was.
But yeah, he would just get attacked by ninjas all the time. But their ninja master wasn't really good at it, at teaching them, so he got attacked by second-rate ninjas all the time.
Mm-hmm.
That's just what happens to the Tick, which is fine because his superpowers is being nigh invulnerable. Something will stop him, but it takes a lot.
Ashwood, I think I kind of crossed you earlier when you were talking about Power Rangers. I apologize. You activated my hyperfixation card. What were you saying? My apologies.
No, it's just whenever they needed like a new power up, it always seemed to go to the ninja. Or there's a myriad of teams of Power Rangers. There's Ninja Steel, there's Ninja Force, there's Ninja Fury. Like whenever you need a Power Ranger just pulled out of the blue, it's like somehow had something to do with ninjas. So it seemed like that was just always one big thing Power Rangers were doing. Is that's like just deeply embedded in their canon is ninjas.
Is it? Did you say Ninja Force? I should remember this better.
Ninja Force, Ninja Fury,
Ninja Storm.
Ninja Storm. That's one.
Was it Ninja Storm that their sixth ranger looked like a ninja but was a samurai? Do you guys
No.
Yeah,
No,
he was
Ninja
the samurai
Storm,
ranger.
because I believe the samurai ranger was actually wasn't it the nephew of the hamster sensei
Yeah,
they
he
had?
was green. I think.
Oh, I think you're right. Yeah, it was.
So
a green,
Leo, once upon a
green
time,
ranger.
the ninja's master got turned to a hamster.
Now you
And
might.
Okay,
the
you're
rest
saying this
became
with a
ninjas.
straight face.
Now,
Okay.
this may sound a little
that's-
familiar, right? So there's this martial
I
artist,
was
right?
going to say that sounds very familiar.
Doesn't
Man.
it,
Maybe not
though?
a hamster, but like we're getting pretty close to something there.
Pretty original idea, I think. But yeah, there's this martial artist who gets turned into Rodentia, right? Pretty original for its time, I think. And this martial artist rodent teaches teenagers martial arts, possibly ninjutsu.
I think I've seen this one before.
Yeah, Biker Mice from Mars, I'm pretty sure it's called. But I do find it kind of interesting that you're absolutely right. You know, they do seem to keep coming back to ninjas, and I know in part because they're using the footage from Japan, and Japan is happy to include ninjas into their pop culture as well. But also because I do find it a little bit interesting that we have a team full of normal people, like samurai as an example. It's a samurai show, and they get a cowboy. I think is their sixth ranger, right?
Okay, I could. Why not?
That happens after this ninja series that we're talking about. But we're like, we got a team full of ninjas. Well, what do we need to round out the team? A samurai. That's perfect.
Samurai.
One samurai, team full of ninjas.
That does remind me that the one time they did have like Power Rangers primarily be samurais. It's like, you know what? This would be the perfect opportunity to bring back a ninja, so it's a nice counterbalance. No, it's a fisherman.
Oh, really?
Oh,
yes.
Right, so sorry, you were right. The Samurai series had a fisherman. The Gold Ranger was a fisherman. I was thinking of Ninja Steel, which had the cowboy. My bad on that.
What happened to these ninja teams?
Well, you can't just have like just ninjas on a
They
team.
need their diversity
Leo.
higher.
Yeah, that's a liability. What happens if you need somebody to eat a hamburger? You need you need a cowboy.
Has like, listen,
Fair. I guess you got me on that one.
American Ornigini from all the 7-Elevens, all right?
I'm pretty sure his morpher was a hamburger, if I'm remembering correctly.
It was either ham or like it actually was like a different kind of a. I know there was a Kamen Rider that had one that was a hamburger. Honestly, there was one that had one that was fruit. If you had any kind of superpowers these days,
Incredible.
Well, first we're in the 90s. I mean, here's the other big thing: anime. Anime starts becoming huge in the 90s. That's where we have that big. And you know how many animes have a ninja on it? Yeah,
Barely
there's
any.
a lot. You're like barely any.
Barely any. I mean,
I've
and
seen
then
a ninja or two.
And then, do you remember the American Ninja Warrior thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
Not the movie. The show, like was it called American Ninja Warrior? It was, right? The one
it was
where
American
it was like
Ninja Warrior.
Yeah,
where they would bring in and you would do like the obstacle
course. Yes, yes.
Like the entire this big pool that they would lay out. It was
awesome.
awesome.
Literally just a calisthenic competition.
Yeah, it was
But a
like
very
that. What is
stylish
that
one.
one? What is the one that's actually in Japan where they run through obstacle course and just get?
It's actually called Ninja Warrior for that one.
No, that one.
Yeah.
I think they literally call that one like just Ninja Warrior.
Yeah. So here was the American version, right? Yeah.
Well, and that was a spin-off, if my memory serves, to American Gladiators, wasn't it? Didn't American Gladiators come
Yes.
Yeah, American Gladiators
Yeah.
came out first. That's the first one of those type of athletic competitions that were on the show.
And then Ninja Warrior was kind of they're like, oh, we've done battles on pillars, now let's do obstacle courses and other challenges.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because you had just come out of like the roids rage of the 80s, right? Into the
Yeah.
90s. And so you had all the talent to do it, right? It was just right there. Yeah. It was
Sadly,
great.
Hulkamania was running wild.
Oh yeah, and
It
no one
was.
was getting drug tested. So,
True.
Mm-hmm.
as a fitness professional, I'm allowed to say that.
Yeah, no one was.
And I think no one's going to argue with you. No.
My favorite part about this is that you could say American Ninja, and it could either be American Ninja Warrior, the athletic competition, or the series of 80s American Ninja movies, where there's the one American surrounded by a bunch of ninjas.
That never happened. What? Crazy.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, I mean, because it's in America, American Ninja always leads me to Beverly Hills Ninja,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Chris Farley film.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
No, oh my god, Dane, me and my wife just had this conversation where I was talking about being a kid watching the VHS tapes for Ninja Turtles, and then even on watching those things, there would always be other trailers for other ninja movies. So I was like, all right, cool, getting ready for ninjas to go through time traveling, and it's like, get ready for like Beverly Hills Ninja. Like, okay, there can't be more ninjas than this. Hang Tang, dude. Here's Surf Ninjas. Like, all right,
Oh, Surf
Hell
Ninja.
any
yes.
more ninjas?
Yes.
Oh my god,
do we
3
have any more
ninjas as
ninjas
well.
out there? Anyone
We have
else?
to go back.
I've been waiting to bring up 3 ninjas.
Are we still in the 90s? Are we still good?
We're still in the
We're
90s.
still
Still in the 90s. We're still in the 90s.
Penguin, you did
yeah.
it. You did it. Ashwood, take us away.
We haven't even hit Final Fantasy 3 yet, and we're in
That's
the
true.
90s.
That's true. Or 6.
We're working our way through the other ninjas right now.
I will say, as an aside, it did always confuse me because I'd be talking to my friends and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, like, oh, you play Final Fantasy 3?" It's like, "Oh yeah, man, I played Final Fantasy 3." And then Final Fantasy 7 came out, and we're like, well, "Hold on a minute, what? wait a minute."
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Like, there's a math problem here.
What happened to the rest of them?
Yeah, we didn't get them. That's what happened.
Yeah, true. We didn't know that at the time. It was just like,
Yeah.
yeah, this is 1, and this is 2, and this is 3, and then there's 7. I don't know.
Yeah, I
This
don't know
one's
what
a
happened. Yeah,
We just skipped a few.
They just decided they didn't want to make 4 through 6.
they made Mystic Quest.
That's true. Oh. Anyway, 3 ninjas.
But
Mate.
I love
Give me-
Mystic
give me
Quest.
that
I know
lore.
people give it drama. I love it. Yeah, 3 ninjas. Go for
Give me
it.
that lore.
3 Ninjas was an incredible series of movies that followed these 3 kids who could not have been older than 8, taking on ninjas like 3 times their size. And they, like, the whole point was that they were like honoring their uncle or their grandfather and like his legacy as a martial arts master. And it could not have been like more invigorating for a child of my size who grew up in the 90s, because it's just like, oh, fucking Kurt over here has or Cole over here has a nunchuck. I want a nunchuck. I want to be like Mikey from the Ninja Turtles.
Right? Yeah. What was?
I still follow that guy on TikTok.
yeah, he's great, and was a Power Ranger.
And was a Power
Yeah.
Ranger.
Yeah, how many
Leaned
kids? How many kids in the 80s and 90s were in the ER because they got hit by, nunchucks, boa staffs,
Oh yeah,
made up stars? Yeah, it was a crazy era.
It was a crazy.
So
Yeah,
era.
we'd throw anything at each other.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did hear this rumor that Rocky loves Emily. I don't know if you guys have heard that rumor. That's, for those of you in the know, that's a line from one of the movies. Colt teases his older brother Rocky, who I think was 12. I think he was the eldest at like 12, fighting a grown adult ninjas. That he was in love with a girl named Emily. Yeah, right. Naturally, being children in the 80s. Obviously, you had to fight ninjas. It's just what happened.
I did it every day.
Yeah.
I mean, that
Yeah.
was just life in the 80s.
Well, and 3 Ninjas and then Surf Ninjas after that do definitely come on the heels of the Karate Kid, right? Which did not necessarily, the first one at least, did not necessarily deal with ninjas.
Like there was a conflict at some point. There were ninjas.
The first one, they're fighting teenagers are fighting other teenagers, and it's all good. But I guess for the time, it was all good. I'm not encouraging teenager on teenager violence, just for the record. But you do have this sort of like, as Ashwood said, child learns martial arts and then uses it throughout the course of the film, right? Whether it was karate, whether it was kung fu or what have you. And so when the three ninjas came out, yeah, it was, Ralph Macchio was a little bit old when that movie came out for me to really like latch onto him. I kind of could. He was a kid like I was, but the three ninjas were a little bit closer to me in age. And I was like, oh yeah, I want nunchucks. I want, a cool mask and to go into the woods and train with my grandfather, who's awesome. Like, that sounds incredible.
And also a ninja?
Yeah. And then I don't know if it's the first or the second of the Three Ninjas franchise. There's three of them that I can recall, but one of them, they fight like a CEO who wants to tear down, like to bulldoze some land or something that's going to negatively impact the community. And they're fighting his hired ninjas, I believe.
Yeah. I think that's the second movie.
I think it is the second movie.
Possibly. Because the thing is, the third one has to deal with like a roller coaster theme park.
Well, yeah, we're definitely not talking about was it Showdown at Mega Mountain?
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
That was my favorite one.
It's a great one.
Yeah. But there was that was another common trope, that whole like, big business trying to destroy. I mean, look at the Goonies, right? Like there were so many movies that just people are still talking about that to this day, and it's it's stayed part of our, I guess, psyche since then.
Mm-hmm. All we need to do is get a bunch of teenagers together to do some sort of activity, and they'll save the community center, or they'll save the what have you, the library from being bulldozed by corporations.
Man, at least we didn't have to go through that dance battle.
It was rough times, man. Rough times.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. I do remember Breaking 2 Electric Boogaloo.
Yeah, who doesn't? We lived that.
Not as many ninjas, but a fun title. I like to have that title regardless of what's going on. So I think that'll lead us out of the 90s for the most part.
Oh, we still haven't touched on the Final Fantasy ones of the 90s.
Yeah.
They're going back on down to the 90s.
Going back on, well, no, just the 90s, not to the 80s, right? So like, we moved on to, so Final Fantasy 1 was the 80s, right? And then you had 3 so 2 didn't really have anything about it, and 3 you got the ability to job switch, right? But here's the thing, like this was another area where you had to earn it, right? So in order to get ninja, you had to master archer, geomancer, and thief, right? All 3 of those jobs to unlock ninja. And then
I never understood the geomancer part.
Hey, I don't either, but
I didn't write this.
It was there, but it was also the first Final Fantasy where you got the ability to throw the weapon, right? Yes. So like the whole like Chinese star thing, like that, finally made it in 90. And then in 4, which was R2, I guess, Edge, right? Edge. Was like the first named ninja character in the game. So like we didn't get, mind you, 90, this is 91, right? This is when we got our first ninja character. 92, the dual wield capability, so that's Final Fantasy V, becomes permanent. You can transfer to other jobs, which by the way became way OP when we got to like Final Fantasy 11.
Yes,
down the road.
Tactics, yeah.
Well, that was through
and tactics.
Fire crystal, right? In 5, I think.
Yes, yeah. So 5, and then you got ability inheritance systems. Also, throw expanded. This is kind of funny, but you could throw Gil for the first time in 5.
Shout out to Yojimbo in 10, one of my favorite summons.
And I would say that was the game where ninja got established as like the ultimate upgrade for a thief, right? Like that's where the thief kind of hit its peak. And then in 6, which was R3 Shadow, right? You get, but again, to our point earlier, this is where you start kind of crossing the whole ninja and assassin trope, right? So Shadow was an assassin really with the dog interpreter, but he's basically a ninja. But this was where we first had the concept of ninja as mercenary, as opposed to just ninja doing it for like upstanding moral good, whatever reason. And then, 7, which is kind of pertinent now because you're getting the remakes coming out, is where we got our first female ninja protagonist in a Final Fantasy franchise with Yuffie Kisaragi, right? And by the way, they killed it in the remakes with this character. But
Integrated was so good.
Oh, it was. I saw the footage. I haven't played it through, but I saw other playthroughs of it, and it looked amazing.
It's awesome.
This is one of those things where I think 7 kind of started pulling together a couple of things. So like we talked about how Ninja kind of came across to the West, right? But so 7 is where that really played out as far as Final Fantasy goes. It represented Japan's post-war relationship with traditional Japan versus modern Japan, right? This is where they were finally kind of accepting the modernization thing. So Wutai in 7 was a formerly powerful nation reduced to basically a tourist destination. Think about that for a second. Materia obsession, right, was kind of Japan's the tech boom mentality, right? That was their materia in their world. There was kind of the motion sickness gag, right, with Yuffie. But it also created what some people have called like the bubbly ninja girl archetype that eventually went into anime.
Yep.
Right. So these are where the kind of these bridges get formed. And that's the last in the 90s. Now it continued into the 2000s, but since we're still in the 90s, that's kind of how Final Fantasy evolved from the ninja perspective all during the 90s. So you can see like that evolution gave us some really awesome character abilities later on in the series.
And I find it very interesting too, to kind of bounce off of that, where you've got, Locke, who is a thief, very much so first and foremost, but then kind of becomes a ninja later on. You typically speaking, at least in the previous games, do see like it's thief to ninja, but with Yuffie, she is a ninja first and foremost, who is also a thief, right?
Right.
So they do kind of like play with that space a little bit, which I find very interesting.
Yeah, but also they're a thief doesn't roll off the tongue nearly as cool as also they're a ninja.
Well, I mean, technically she's a materia hunter, right? So like she's not a ninja or a thief. I don't know where these accusations came from that she's stealing things. That's terrible.
She may or may not be a ninja.
Yeah.
But she does materia disappeared when she was in the vicinity. That's all we're gonna say.
But she doesn't know what happened. I do find it kind of interesting too, right? To kind of play off of the Wutai aspect as well. Typically speaking, historically, the ninja were they came from these small villages, by and large, right? The Koga were well known and the Iga were well known for having these small farming communities initially in the mountains, which were pretty remote and pretty isolated from city life, as it were. But they then, became these commodities and trained these specialized warriors out of necessity to try to fight back. Oda Nobunaga wipes out I believe it's the Iga clan. He doesn't wipe them out, but he deals significant damage to them, and then goes on a tour later that year of the domain just to be like, neener, look what I did. Like, I beat you guys at your own game. In your own turf, which was something that hadn't really been done. So I think, Wutai is really kind of an interesting, because absolutely it does represent sort of the past, both for Japan and for Midgard, or for Terra, the planet itself. But it also sort of does harken back to these old historical roots of the ninja, where they come from these small villages and their life is a little bit slower, and these warriors have arisen out of necessity, right, to defeat Shinra.
Speaking of video games with ninjas in it, though, this is where we get the trope of the fighting game ninja.
Dead or Alive.
Mortal Kombat has how many of them?
Mortal Kombat. Oh, well, yeah. I mean,
Street Fighter.
True.
Dead or Alive series.
Yeah.
There's a whole ninja clan somewhere in the back there.
Well, I mean, Ryu Hayabusa is kind of an interesting character, right? Because he comes from Ninja Gaiden, and then it makes it into Dead or Alive. And so it kind of marries those two worlds together, which I find very interesting. So like Kasumi, I think initially in Dead or Alive 1, because I don't think Ryu Hayabusa was in Dead or Alive 1. He might have been.
No, Ryu is.
Is he? Mm-hmm. Interesting. Was he tied to Kasumi and Akane at that time?
I believe so.
Because I remember it was like 2 or 3 when I was like, oh, they like know each other. And then you saw them show up in later Ninja Gaiden games as well, which was kind of cool.
With that, for let's see here. For Dead or Alive 1, they have Base Armstrong, Ayane. Yeah, Ryo Hayabusa is one of the first ones.
Okay.
So this is... They only have like about 12 characters. So it's almost a 30% ninja ratio on this one.
The first one does not have a lot of characters, and I'll be honest, I never played Ryo Hayabusa in Dead or Alive 1. I was a young man and playing characters that fell in line with that. So that's what I'll say about that. But yeah, you're absolutely right. That's a lot of ninjas on one fighting game. Very similar to Mortal Kombat, right? Where you've got Scorpion and Sub-Zero being sort of the most well-known, but Reptile, eventually Noob Saibot, Smoke, Rain. There's others. I know there are others.
They're really just switching color palettes and thought something can go good with here. Something.
Yeah, and they're mostly named
Sub-Zero,
after,
but not the same Sub-Zero.
They're mostly named after weather or like other like natural elements. Other than like Scorpion's kind of a natural element. He's a little guy, but
he's just a little guy.
Yeah,
there's definitely a lot of it in there. But and I don't think Street Fighter had a ninja proper, but yeah.
No, I think so. No.
No ninja.
They have a ninja-like thing, but that's Vega.
Well, but Vega was like a matador. Like he was Spanish, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
he's from Spain.
Yeah.
Or at least our version of Vega.
Right.
It's weird. The bosses' names get moved around.
100%. Balrog being one of them, M. Bison being another, right? Yeah, absolutely. I know that Strider from Marvel vs. Capcom, not from Lord of the Rings.
Just how cool! How cool would that be?
Viggo Mortensen just shows up in NBC3.
I was gonna say, like, hold on a second. Like, you could make an argument that the Strider from was kind of a ninja because he moved in the shadows and could disappear, could live in the land without people seeing him. So sort of.
And trades like the face mask, full face covering for like a big long scarf, which is carried forward into other ninjas into pop culture from them.
Right.
I don't know if
carried everywhere. I mean, then the whole ninja trope is responsible for things like Metal Gear Solid and Assassin's Creed and so many other ones, right? So like, that thing went. I mean, it just exploded on this once it hit the shores over here.
I mean, even since we're still in the 90s, even Pokemon has ninja. You know, Koga. Being named after the clan of ninja.
They were very on spot on with that one.
His daughter Janine, they use poison type Pokemon, and their gym is very much so tricksy and very, very ninja-esque. Yeah, ninjas get everywhere. They get into every sort of pop culture.
Man, there's just so many ninjas in this place.
A lot of ninjas.
See, ninja-related activity. That's what happens here.
You have your pick of the lot when it comes to ninjas.
Mm-hmm. I guess at that point we'll be moving on to roughly around the early 2000s. But this is kind of about the heyday of the ninja as far as the rise of it as a pop culture. Because you rise up as a pop culture until you become a trope. Once you become a trope, you've kind of solidified yourself as what this will be. Like, Naruto comes out, it's literally a clan of ninjas, and no one bats an eye about this plot line. That Naruto is what happens when everyone becomes a ninja.
When it starts in the 90s, the manga does.
So, to your point from an earlier statement, what happens if everyone's a ninja? Well, now you have Naruto, because literally everybody's there is a ninja.
When I was just a regular job.
There are some people who aren't ninjas in Naruto, though, which is wild. There's also samurai in Naruto, which is, I mean, I guess, are there samurai villages? Watch the show, find out. Maybe, yeah. I have one piece of media I'd like to talk about from the 2000s, but I'm happy to let somebody else go first because I feel like I've talked quite a bit.
No, that's fine. I'm kind of wrapping up here because we're now gone from rise to the pop culture to your pop culture.
Fair enough. So one of the best games probably ever made, in my opinion, is Ghost of Tsushima. It's incredible, but you watch as the samurai. Spoilers for this game. I highly recommend you go play it. I know this is a spoiler-heavy podcast, and we said at the beginning of every episode, but like, I'm going to talk about the plot. Go experience that game, please. If you have any interest, stop listening. I don't normally say that, but like, it's so good. And I'm very excited about Yotei, the sequel. So, there's your warning. Jin Sakai is a samurai at the outset of the game. He comes from a samurai family, and this takes place during the invasion of Japan by the Mongols. He's a samurai, but due to the necessity of the situation, there's kind of two paths set before him. He can walk the road of the samurai and retain his honor and continue forward as he was, or he can adapt and change with a better chance of success by becoming what's known as the Ghost, which is the sort of sneaky stealth-based gameplay. Very much, they don't call it a ninja, but it's much more ninja-esque than the normal samurai fighting that you would think of. So a lot of stealth, a lot of Assassin's Creed type gameplay.
Metal Gear, Ghost of Tsushima, yeah.
Yeah.
Metal Gear.
And it's really interesting because depending on your actions in that game, you get different endings, and people start to treat you a little bit different, especially like people who are samurai from your past, your life previously. They will treat you either better or the same as they did before, or they start to kind of like shy away from you a little bit if they've heard that you are sneaking about and doing these things. It's dishonorable to sneak in the shadows as a samurai. And I think it's very interesting, the juxtaposition of Jin Sakai as a character, as a samurai, and sort of him having basically to become more ninja-like in order to save his homeland. I think it's an incredible story, and that through line I think is very interesting, because this isn't just a ninja for ninja's sake, right? This isn't just a warehouse full of ninjas to be defeated. This is a entrenched, deep character who has to make a decision they normally probably wouldn't have made in order to save what they love. And I think that's very good.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The game is amazing. Yeah, if you haven't played it, you absolutely need to. Yeah. I'll say also, this is Final Fantasy 11, right? This is peak MMO. I would say probably as far as I'm concerned, the best MMO ever made, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. 11, really?
But
okay.
But I will say that this is to me, this is where the ninja thing kind of it took on its own life form. And I say that because in 11, the original intent of the ninja was to be a DPS character, but the player base did not want that, right? And so the player base actively figured out ways to use the ninja as a tank for the first time ever in a Final Fantasy series. And it was a brutal tank to the point where the game developers had to go make the paladin special armor sets that were OP just to compete with the ninja tanks in the game. And then when they allowed them, so like the player base pushed back, they said, okay, fine, you can use the ninja as a tank. They gave it all of its abilities were now spells as opposed to like magic, right? They changed it a little bit. But what was really crazy was then they went and said, okay, we're going to allow you to put this as a subclass on other things. So you had red mages, which could cast all magic, running around dual wielding swords soloing all kinds of things that shouldn't have been possible because of just the OP nature of the ninja. The subclass was allowing them to just wail on things. And so this is an area where I think like the ninja had now taken over. The ninja was no longer a character in the game. The player base was leading with that character. And to this day, those of us who play 11 still remember how OP that ninja was.
Yeah, absolutely. I was a samurai main at the time. And incredible feats were done with ninjas at the helm. They led from the front, as it were, and it's just nutty.
Yeah,
absolutely
insane.
Agree. I know that in 14 they were very nervous about releasing ninja for that same reason.
Yeah,
because they were very clear, like, this is a DPS class. You will be DPSing, and the community was like, "We'll see." So far, it has remained a DPS class, but. There was definitely that like trepidation from the company being like, oh, I don't know, do we release ninja?
And they tried everything. They tried they tried increasing the timer to recount Utsusemi. They tried reducing the damage that the daggers. I mean, they tried everything, and the people were just not having it. They were finding ways around it. So, I mean, they were casting haste on the ninjas. I mean, they were doing anything they could to keep that thing as a tank. It was interesting to watch the player base fight the devs.
Yeah.
Nowadays that's common, right? That's like they're nonstop. They're always fighting the devs. But this was like the first time where the player base, mind you, of a relatively meek and modest player base, was going against the devs and like, no, we're going to use this the way we want to use it.
I think that is always kind of interesting when creators get their own product wrong. So in the case of 11, like ninja's a tank, right? It just is. This is a quick aside, but the mangaka of Demon Slayer says that the fire and water and elemental effects on the blades in Demon Slayer aren't actually there. It's just kind of a representation. They're just doing sword moves. And it's weird that he's wrong about that, but like, here we are, that's crazy to me that somebody who created something could be so wrong about what they've made. I don't know. The community has kind of just ignored that.
They just
like,
take,
yeah, okay.
they take a, and then especially nowadays with all the modding stuff, even if the developer were like, no, they're like, well, we can just mod the game and do
we'll
what
just
we
put it
want.
back in.
So, okay.
This is not how this ninja's supposed to be. Nah.
But it is, though.
But it is, though. Okay. But yeah, so, like, I think that's sort of the endish of my episode for that. Before I close this out, and just some last thoughts on this, real quick, if there was a ninja thing that we did not mention real quick, Pop, now is like a good time to list each one of them that you can think of right now.
The Adventures of Dr. McNinja.
Yes,
Probably is my favorite webcomic.
Wow, that was a deep cut right there from the catalog. Wow.
Dang.
Yeah.
Core memory unlocked.
It had all the tropes. It had all the tropes that you needed for a ninja story. And like down to the gorilla receptionist.
Mm-hmm.
You just if you haven't checked out, if you're a fan of comics or webcomics, check out The Adventures of Dr. McNinja.
You will not be disappointed for that one. That is a fun time. What was it like in that? It's like I love that his dad is still a ninja, but also has a giant mustache.
Has a giant mustache cut out of the mask. Yeah.
So that way he would just have a mustache there.
Well, you gotta have your ninja stash.
Well, my favorite line from that thing that always sticks with me is like, "Sir, we can't capture him. Why?" Well, he set himself on fire, which is his advice that his dad had. He goes, "Yeah, you want to not get caught, set yourself on fire. No one's going to try to catch you."
I mean, there wasn't a lot.
I mean, yeah,
good advice.
Yeah, good, solid advice there.
How about you, Leo?
Oh, what is it? Oh, there's so many ninja things that I think of, and now they're all clashing into each other. I think I'm going to go with the OP route. If you have played Final Fantasy Tactics and you decide that you're wanting to really work against the grain and decide to ease things up,
Soldier.
Be a ninja.
No, Soldier's the best class in that game.
Not when you glue it with a ninja.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I do love the idea of just throwing money at things.
Yeah.
Not
because you're an American. Oh,
Oh,
got him.
Got him.
All right. Ben, I will leave that one to you next.
Well, actually, going back to gaming ninjas, and I think one that really puts together the lines of just like that whole wants to be traditional like ops, but is also just like the modern, just like no, we just want a cool ass ninja. Is Raven from Tekken.
Yes.
Because, especially with going through a lot of his moveset, there are ones where he would literally make like a whole shadow clone of himself just to sneak attack with himself again. And I always have this as it was just one of the funniest cutscenes. That was interaction between him and Yoshimitsu. But to have Raven try teaching him the actual hand signs, and Raven, who's a black guy, going to Yoshimitsu, and it's like, no, you gotta do it like this, and then like this, and it's like, I feel like there's a culture clash thing going here, and it's like Yoshimitsu's getting a hand sign lesson from Bruce Leroy, so
I want to take mine back real quick. So now I remember, because I left a note for myself to mention this because it sounded so insane. Apparently, this was an idea that someone pitched, and it got through. The idea was a backdoor pilot for a TV show based on the show Chips that was going to be ninjas. It is literally... So, Chips, which is the California Highway Patrol, apparently has a secret special unit of ninjas in the back. There is an episode of Chips where they have this on there, and I am delightful to know that is a real thing that exists. And I didn't say it was good. I wanted this to preface this. This is too far in the cheese realm because nobody picked it up. I'd watch it, but that's because I'm a sucker for this. All right. I believe that leaves us with either Ernst or Dane. Which one wants to take it?
It's hard to choose just one, to be honest.
Oh, yeah. You have a plethora of ninja-based options here.
Mystical Ninja Goemon is something that if I don't mention, Spice and Rose will murder me. It's a great game, great series of games. Goemon's awesome, based off of a historical ninja named of the same. So that definitely comes to mind. I mean, Naruto was very formative for me in terms of anime. I loved I do still love Naruto. So great. We didn't talk that much about it, but it's, I mean, people who aren't into anime or Japanese culture know what Naruto is. Like that's how prevalent it is, right?
Your plan is to do the Naruto run. That's why we call it that.
Yeah. People were going to go to Area 51 and do the Naruto run. Like, freaking wild.
That's
absolutely freaking wild. So yeah, I don't think you can talk about Ninja without talking about Naruto. Yeah.
Not for how long that show's gone.
I mean, right. Those are probably the two, right? We mentioned Power Rangers, so that was kind of my big one. Yeah, I think that's one of those two. They're just incredible.
All right.
Yeah, mine again would just be the, kind of the how the thing evolved over time in the Final Fantasy franchise. That's always been my, all of them, all the character classes, but just Ninja was one of those where it, like, again, because it was pseudo Eastern, but more of a Western construct thrown in, and how they ran with it. Yeah, it just, to me, it's like that. I watched that evolution happen over decades, literally. And, they finally brought balance to it, right? Because it started off as something very small and very difficult and very, I guess it had boundaries around it, kind of opened up around 11. And I think, you would say in later years, they kind of brought a balance to the overall character, not just from like the abilities or whatever, but also from like a respect to cultural heritage type thing. Because there was, like, as you mentioned earlier on, right, there was many exploitation eras in Western media. And ninjas were not exempt from that. But I think in more recent years, they've kind of brought the balance back for the respectful kind of addressing of that cultural archetype.
I do find it kind of interesting, just really quick to bounce off of what you just said, that we don't see that with the black belt / monk or even the samurai in Final Fantasy, right? Like they were present in those games as well, but we don't have the same sort of like mythos surrounding them. You get a black belt and you're like, cool. It's like or you get a monk and you're like, neat. I'm going to go suplex a train or whatever. I mean, Tifa's my favorite character and she's a monk, right? So I'm a big fan of the monk archetype, but it does not hit the same as the ninja does in Final Fantasy. I absolutely agree.
Yeah, for sure. And even there were some great monks throughout the series too, right? Many of them, and they're unstoppable against the undead. True. But it's one of those things where the monk just doesn't. Yes, there are people that are have just like they're like I used to be a huge fan of the paladin until 11, and then it kind of went, because again the ninja just took over at that point, and it was like, well, what's the point of the paladin when you have a ninja tank, right? So
true.
To where they had to course correct that character. So like that should be a testament there to like what the cultural power of the ninja is itself, that it brought to heel the character of a paladin, which typically is like sits on the upper echelon of heroes in any game, right? Any RPG. They had to buff the paladin to counterbalance the ninja. That's kind of crazy if you think about it.
Yeah. Could not agree more.
And I think that is the last spot. Ernest, I think you had something you wanted to say at the tail end of this.
Yeah. So, on our, podcast, Final Fantasy Files, one of the things I like to bring in is kind of the geopolitical, socioeconomic, just kind of the things that are happening that breathe life into these things, that we did it most recently with the 7 series and the 7 remake series. And so I put together a little bit of a note here. And it's I kind of said that the ninja is an American cultural creation, right? Because that's really what we're talking about. We borrowed and made something of our own. But then what's amazing is the East leaned into it, right? Because they were like, well, yeah, this has some of us and some of them. So it was kind of like the merging of the two cultures, right? In a positive way. Whereas, World War II was clearly not that. So, what I put together here was the ninja craze. It wasn't really about historical Japanese ninja at all. It was about American anxieties, aspirations, and economic opportunities, dressed in black masks and throwing stars, right? Because this was a tumultuous era. We were coming out of one in the 70s, right? And we were in the midst of the Cold War when this was happening, right? So The real story is how a culture took fragments of another culture's history, right? So we borrowed from the Japanese and built an entirely new mythology that reflected their own moment in time, right? That's very specific about what happened during this era, from Cold War tensions to Reagan era excess, because that definitely was something that was going on in the 80s. People were, the 80s were the birth of a lot of problems we have today, right? To the birth of modern multimedia franchising. We talked a little bit about how G.I. Joe and some of these others were designed to sell toys, right? And that's exactly what happened here. It's the reason Disney bought Star Wars and Marvel and all these other things, right? They don't care about the properties. They want to merchandise the toys. That's what this is about. So Ninja became the perfect vessel for late 20th century American dreams and fears. And I think that's really the capstone here, that embodied an entire generation's just kind of ethos around kind of almost a secretive, latent power that they wanted to possess in a time that they didn't really have control. And that's really what it came down to.
That's a solid point for that one. All right. But with that being said, our next episode is going to be available on September 19th. And with that, this is Gaming Theater Podcast logging out. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
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 Gaming Theater Podcast is hosted, created, produced, and edited by Leo Garcia, the Geek Scorpio. Our music is A Drinking Game. Stock media provided by Stormwave Audio /Pond5. Our cover art is by Adam Parker. You can find him at ParkerGFX on Twitter. If you want to send us some money to help with these episodes, you can do so at patreon.com/gamingtheaterpresents. Want to send support that doesn't hit your wallet? Please leave a review with wherever you hear your podcasts and share our podcast with your friends. It really helps out. Thank you for listening.